All right, welcome. This is Living. That's what we're doing here. We want to welcome you to our new show entitled This is Living. My name is Julie Landy, and I'll be your host for today. And I am the founder of Live Your Vision, a transformational coaching organization for women. And I'm super excited because living is a term that we use here in our community that really is not a destination. It's not an accomplishment. It's not an award. What it is an escalated or elevated way of thinking, a way of feeling, a way of believing that really opens doors for women when they realize that there's a different way to think, a bigger way to act, believe, even feel. It's all of a sudden the doors open up. So it does lead to oftentimes more income, more impact, and more fulfillment. And that's what we're here to talk about today. As the founder of the organization, I'm so thrilled to be able to help women from all over the world discover, develop, and distribute their unique gifts for greater impact and a great new chapter. So I host many events. We host many events. The team hosts many events. The community hosts many events. And these are events that enable women to sample what it's like to be here in our community, have an idea of that. And our Living series that we're calling this, it includes events that incorporate personal development, things that the women have told us they want, professional development, relationship development, financial development, even wellness development. And that's what this series is about. So these are the 5 main areas that we cover. And we really do help women to do that because you know what? Women have said they need some support. And I know I do. So in the area of fitness, friendship, faith, fulfillment, and finances, we help bring topics to you we hope that will be of interest. So if this is in fact of interest to you, go ahead, like, subscribe, follow, whatever it is that you need to do to stay tuned to be able to hear more. So we're going to keep bringing some things for you. I do have some notes. I'm going to tell you I do because I don't want to miss a thing today. But as I said, I'm thrilled to be able to host our very first interview in the series called Living in Wellness. And our series is meant to help give tips and practicals and bring some professionals together that can really help us be our best. It will be culminating in an event that we're hosting on April 20th called Living in Wellness, where you'll get to sample many practitioners that are part of our community and enable you to just have a little self-care yourself. I don't know about you, but most of the women I know are so driven to serve others and have been so busy making a difference wherever they go that honestly, they're not very good at taking care of themselves. That's the bottom line. I myself would consider myself a flunky if it weren't for the team that I've gotten myself surrounded by, because boy, oh boy, don't I need it. Forgive me for reaching that point. But I know that I can get to a place of being snarky and resentful and unfulfilled, really wondering why I'm fearful, insecure, and resentful about, others and even my own future when I don't take care of myself. My cup is not full. So I admit I need support. Maybe you do too. I have decided that I'm turning myself in and have for a while now surrounded myself with a support crew to help me keep that on the front and center, because otherwise I wouldn't. And I really do need that support. So I'm super excited to be able to introduce to you our very first guest, who is in fact a wellness practitioner herself. Mie Tsuchimoto is a cognitive behavioral therapist. She's also a coach. She's the founder of Finding Your Way Forward, and she has helped many over the years really heal and find their way forward. And so I'm so excited because what better place to start than in the mind, the wellness of the mind. And so I'm so grateful. Mie, would you be willing to say hello and tell us a little bit about you?
Absolutely, Julie. Good morning, everyone. So, I probably started my therapist journey on the playground at school. I really feel like I was absolutely blessed with the gift of being able to have compassion and listen to others. And after a career with the airline, I decided that I needed more and kind of accidentally fell into a faith-based psychology program, and my life kind of went on from there. I have a master's in clinical psychology and in pastoral counseling, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California.
So incredible. I love how you mentioned that it's from the playground. That's how far back it goes.
Yes.
That's super cute. So one of the reasons we wanted to be able to host this series is because many women have this sort of, I'll say mistaken, as did I, notion that self-care is selfish. But we're here to help women realize that self-care is not selfish at all, Mie, and I appreciate that, but in fact, a necessary. If we're going to be able to care for anybody else, we do have to care for ourselves. And many of us walk around drained and really having a hard time being able to do that. So how originally, well, you mentioned how you got involved in wellness, but tell us a little bit about, your personal experience with taking on this new way of thinking, because obviously the airline, oh, you lost your light there, right? So the airlines weren't conducive to taking care of yourself. I know you were in a service business for sure when you're in there. So how did you get involved? How did this become a passion? And honestly, how many years have you been doing it now?
So I have been a licensed therapist now for almost 24 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I wanted to be a doctor when I was a little girl,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
I was one of those high schoolers that went, yeah, I don't think I want to do 15 years of college. I want to be a pediatrician. And again, kind of, God has a plan for us, I believe. And my path may have taken a little extra time, but now I work a lot of the time with children that have learning disabilities on the spectrum with ADHD. So I'm kind of working with their brains anyway. But one of the things that happened, probably 30 years ago, I was competing in triathlons. And this is something that I noticed before I even went into becoming a therapist, was that athletes would train so hard on their bodies. They would train so hard on their bodies, on their nutrition and everything else, but there were still stressors in their lives that they were not attending to. And then and then I, noted that act. But then, when even as a therapist, probably 5 years ago, myself, I was working 30 hours a week plus, which is actually a lot for a therapist because you're taking on so much of other people's information and holding it, but it's there. And I was not feeling well. I was not feeling like I had a whole lot more to give. I was starting to be drained. And I realized that I was taking my vitamins, I was working out, but I wasn't really taking time for the self-care I needed, which was stillness, meditation, prayer, doing the things that actually would fill me up. And when I realized that, I had this epiphany and I started taking care of myself. Which is about the same time I met you. And, we really realized that women give so much to everyone else, our families, our jobs, our spouses, our community, our churches, and we just don't take the time for ourselves and we end up snarky. I was in that exact same place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that. It's interesting, you don't think that someone with your degree or training would ever end up in that place, but sometimes that's we're our own worst enemies in that respect. We too need support, I guess is what we're saying. So tell us, I have a couple questions that I prepared because I thought some people might want to know if there was one thing you would recommend people stop doing from your position, what would that be?
So I believe the biggest thing that especially we women do, and mostly this is built over time with social media, is comparing ourselves to others. And when we compare ourselves to others, it creates this instant moment of self-criticism, which then completely devaluates our self-worth.
That's a really big one. It's funny. I had conversations with two different women yesterday in my coaching practice. That was the issue. Comparison. It is a demon of joy. It's
Absolutely
the threat, the killer of all joy, isn't it? So thank you for that tip. Stop comparing. I got that loud and clear. All right. So now what is one thing that you recommend that we start doing as women to care for ourselves?
So one of the things that I do in cognitive behavioral therapy is we talk about how, thoughts turn into feelings and then turn into behaviors. And we have a self-talk that goes on all of the time. And I think the thing that we need to start doing is reframing the negative self-talk that comes into our mind instantly. We have a practice called thought stopping. And if we can be aware of that moment when we say that negative thing in our head and then say stop and reframe that into a positive thing, then that turns, again, that positive thought into a positive feeling, therefore, positive behaviors, which really starts your day. And I don't think it's something that we take the time out of to be aware of and to attend to. So I think it's really important. Start reframing those negative thoughts. We've been carrying them around for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And so it's definitely an internal habit that we don't even know is there.
So can you give me an example of that? Like, give us a real example. Would you mind?
Okay, so all right, here's one. We'll take both of those, comparing and the thought stopping. So we're on Facebook and we're looking at everybody's lives, which everyone shows the beautiful family portrait that just happened in the park. They failed to show the 5 minutes before when the kids were throwing rocks at each other and the spouses are having an argument. And then we compare that. It's like, oh well, my life doesn't look like that. My family doesn't look like that. My kids are a mess. So immediately you're comparing, and now you have this negative thought. My family isn't good enough. Therefore, I'm not a good enough mother. I'm not a good enough wife. I'm not a good enough Christian. And there you go. There's the self-talk. And then to reframe that, be, well, wait, stop. I'm seeing the best of the best. I know if I went out to the park, my family's picture would look just like that. I must realize that everybody else has things going on behind the scene. Therefore, I am a good enough mother. I'm a great wife. I'm an awesome friend. I'm a working on myself Christian. And again, that just raises our feeling of worth again. I am the daughter of the King. I am my own person. Wherever you are at, then it comes back to being worthy in your heart and in your soul.
I could literally just feel myself go, oh, thank you. Yeah, my family could look like that too if we posed them for a split second, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody has a snapshot into
yes.
That's so helpful.
Yes.
So, okay, so I have some other fun questions that actually some other people have asked me to ask you.
All right.
What would one key wellness tip be that you would want people to know? Like, give us one tip.
So, again, I think a lot of it is taking from, you've taught me to work for my strengths, not for my challenges. We work on the challenges, but we work in our strengths, right? So again, taking those gifts that you naturally have. Not everybody is an athlete. Not everybody is an artist. Not everyone is a musician, although these are all gifts. So incremental time blocking for self-care is the most important piece. Whether it's an hour in the morning, an hour at lunch, later in the afternoon, taking an incremental block of time where you walk and exercise, meditate or spend time in prayer, read, listen to music, journal, color, anything that's going to bring you peace in the moment so that you can then continue with your day knowing that you're filled up, because we have to fill our cup up. As you said earlier, Julie, we cannot fulfill and help all the people in our lives if our cup is empty.
Isn't that the truth? My goodness. Yeah. I think that's so great. I'm writing these down because I want to just have these quick cheat sheet type things for myself. So I'm over here looking, oh gosh, I got to write these down for myself. They're so good. Sometimes we just need those quick tips in the moment. I think that's really, really helpful. So, okay, I have to ask you this. There's a lot of things that I'm sure you must see as a therapist. I mean, as a coach, a therapist, your groups that you run and the ways that you help people. I am so sure that there are certain pet peeves that you have. And, I always love to get into the mind of the professional and go, what is it that really bugs you about what's going on? It's funny when I talk to the healthcare professionals, they always have their stuff. And don't we all? But yes, I love to hear some
absolutely. Absolutely. So my biggest pet peeves, and probably this is really more in life, and I do see it with my clients. And the nice thing about working with your clients is that when you see it, you can bring it up. I have three: lack of self-awareness, lack of anticipation, and the lack of follow-through. For instance, I will give a couple my communication skills worksheet that helps them use I statements, open-ended questions, and reflective listening. And I tell them up front, it's going to be silly. It's going to feel weird. With the men, a lot of the times, I'm sure you're using this in the boardroom. I need you to also use it at home. And it is amazing to me, the lack of follow-through. They just won't sit down and do it. Therefore, how are we going to create more effective communication if you don't practice? The self-awareness piece. We have to be aware of who we are and how we are. And I'm not saying I am not a wallflower. I am a bright and bold and courageous, passionate. I've been accused of being an angry person. And I have to own that and say, okay, so my self-awareness is this is how God made me. Yet there are moments where I need to be softer or quieter or listen more. And I think if all of us took that as a self-growth piece versus a criticism piece, we would then become better people. Anticipating just what's ahead for your day, let alone next week. I'm a fly by your seat kind of girl, and I've had to learn to be organized. Yeah. But you can be both. There can be balance there. You can kind of say, I can't do a hard time block every hour of my day. That's completely fine. Time block in soft hours so that you have more freedom. But just know what you're going to do. You can't, if you're getting ready to take a trip somewhere, you don't just get in the car and drive.
Right.
You map it out. There has to be a destination. Okay, well, where are we going today? What's the plan? So I remember when I first started learning to do this, I would forget to block in drive time. Now, I lived in California at the time. So you're talking 30 minutes to an hour to get anywhere. So and I hadn't learned how to use my car quite as an office yet, at least audio. But I would be late to everything because I didn't block out that time. So just simple things like blocking in the time it's going to take you to get somewhere so you're not flying in late or your kid's got one shoe. And being aware of your day and what's going on around you. And then the follow through is the biggest piece. So I said earlier, the gentlemen in the boardroom usually have a pretty good way of communicating. They how to use those I statements. They know how to problem solve. And then they leave the room. And maybe, the 80-20 rule, 20% of them will follow through. And the other 80%, it's kind of in one ear and out the other. So those three things, lack of self-awareness, lack of anticipation, and lack of follow-through are my
this is great. It helps sometimes just to see, because in your position, obviously you're trying to help us have good mental health, right? Healthy ways of thinking and cognitive behavior, I guess is the right term. I'm not sure. But I think, and then we do things, then we don't do the simple things sometimes that could really change it. Like you're saying, just becoming a little more self-aware, using these as growth moments instead of criticisms, and then understanding, like the idea that, oh, wow, if I actually do the work and follow through and finish up, it will really change my life and things will get better and my mind will be healthier. So I love all of it, because I'm even thinking about, oh my goodness, if just time blocking alone is one of those tips that so brings peace to a stressful day. There doesn't have to be as much stress, is basically what I hear you saying, if we will use these tips. And
absolutely.
Absolutely. So in your line of work, I'm sure you've had lots of different, people have ideas about things, and there are sort of misconceptions or myths, if you will, about your field. What would you say is one or two of those?
So for me, there's a couple. So I'm half Japanese. And so, growing up with an Asian father, Asian family, and then I have lots of friends in all the Asian cultures. And one of the things that culture believes is that if you share your problems with others, especially a stranger, and a therapist would be a stranger, that it will make you sicker. And sadly, it's absolutely the opposite. When we stuff things away, and we don't process and work through them, that is actually what makes us sicker. And so that's a definite myth. And then I found in the Western culture, it seems like that seeking therapy either means you're crazy or you're broken. Well, we're probably all a little bit broken, but there's also this beautiful art of kintsugi from the Japanese culture, where they bend the broken pieces of the pots with gold, silver, and it makes it stronger. So anything that you have been through, when you work through it, it's going to heal and make you whole again. So I think part of the reason that I have added the coaching piece to my practice, and this works especially with teenagers, is they don't want the label. They don't going to therapy means there's something wrong with you, which is so not true. Going to therapy means you get to have an accountability partner where you can just dump everything on it about anybody, and it's confidential. and you don't have to burden your family or your friends.
Oh,
And so I would hope that people would understand that, therapy doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Crazy is not a definition in the DSM-5, and it's a safe place. It should be looked at as a safe place where there's someone who has the education and the experience to help you work through whatever has gone on in your life, whether it's you've been in the military as PTSD, or you have childhood trauma, or there's just a situation happening in the moment. They can help you work through that.
wow, that is really enlightening, Mie, and I really appreciate. I'm glad that we asked that question because, first of all, I'm like, wow, I did not know that about the Asian cultures, but it not so far off from many other cultures too. It will just, if we admitted it's going to have life of its own, whereas, it's not true. It's how we deal with things, right?
Yes.
So thank you. It gave me a lot more compassion toward my Asian friends for sure.
Hmm.
If
Hmm.
that's how they culturally have been raised, that really
Right.
helped me.
Right.
And then in addition, that the idea that therapy is a great safe place. It is a great place to go get healed. And you'd stop burdening your family. I mean, it gives you a place to unburden your family if you deal with it there. And so,
Yes.
wow, wow, wow. Talk about eye-opening. I'm glad I asked that question. So thank you for that. That feels really good. And the whole idea of kintsugi, I do understand. And I love that you're just more valuable after you have gone through this than you were
Yes.
before. So
Absolutely.
that's a beautiful.
Absolutely.
So I have one last question. Well, actually, couple, two, really. But tell us a little bit. Maybe give us a story about something you personally experienced, or one of your clients has experienced and some notable success. Something. Give us an illustration of what you're talking about, I guess.
Well, I have a story that I just absolutely adore. And my dear friend Madison has allowed me to share this story. And one of the reasons I think it's beautiful is because this is a subject that touches so many women. I don't know the statistics, but it's probably at least 5 out of 10 women who have had some type of sexual trauma in their childhood.
Wow,
And
true.
I had this client who found her perfect man and her husband, but she came to me because she was trying to work through this childhood trauma of sexual abuse. And one of her greatest fears was not wanting to bring a child into the world because of the fear that it could happen to them, because
Mm.
she wasn't protected by her mother, not intentionally, it was just circumstance. And so we worked through that. And during this time, she wasn't trying to get pregnant or not trying to get pregnant, but she got pregnant. And so we had that 9 months to really work on all the things we just talked about: anticipation, being self aware, being aware of your surroundings, being aware of the people in your world, who's safe, who may not be safe. And she had a baby girl who is now about ready to turn 3,
Oh.
and she is an amazing mom. She's worked through that trauma. She's aware of every situation she's in with her child. And she didn't turn into what I might call the helicopter mom, where she
Mm.
hovers over everything, but she's in a nursery school where there are cameras. She is only around safe people in the family that pretty much have been vetted. And I really love that story because I actually got to see the healing in process and then see the outcome of how she is as a mother and the success of that, even though she had had this trauma in her childhood.
That's a beautiful story. I mean, I think about you're literally helped her find her way forward. And that's a really beautiful thing. I know that's your specialty, to help women, help people find their way forward. I know it's not exclusive to women or men, and I do think, gosh, the statistics are pretty scary. The trauma of sexual,
Abuse. Yeah.
harassment, abuse, yeah, all of that. And I think, gosh, but there is a way to go forward. And thank you for the work that you do. I feel like that is
Oh,
super important to see now that she has been able to heal and move forward and enjoy. She's not shackled by her hurts and her pains. So
right.
thank you for
Right.
that.
Right.
Well, let me ask you this. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners? Anything else in regard to just the whole concept of the fact that wellness, self-care is not selfish, but wellness is the way, really? Because we really want to, this initiative is to help women, particularly, although men are certainly willing, now you're happy to, welcome to listen to this, but
Yes.
women particularly realize that this is, so much of our angst comes from being so depleted. And oftentimes we do see ourselves as disabled or just deficient or less than is the word that you used earlier. But
Right.
in truth, it's because we're so depleted. We
Yes.
just don't have the strength, the energy, the filling up socially, spiritually, emotionally, even financially to be able to move forward. And so we're really trying hard to create an initiative for women to take ownership of their own self-care and not see it as selfish, as a luxury or an indulgence. Can you speak into that for our listeners? Just one last thought on that.
Yes, absolutely. And my clients inspire me every single day because they move into this with courage. I
Mm.
get, I'm on a couple of the online platforms, and it's been people reaching out, actually asking for an Asian therapist because I guess there's not that many of us, and being so afraid to do this, to take this step.
Wow.
And so once we get started, though, what's amazing to me is to see how when they can see that taking that time out for themselves is not selfish but necessary. It doesn't even make sense to not take care of ourselves, because it doesn't work if we don't. And so when they do that, whatever manner they choose to do that in, whether it's physically, or if it's a physical thing, if they want to go for a walk, or sit down and journal and read a book, and just take that time. I've had women start with just watching their favorite little 30-minute TV show while they're folding the laundry. So they're kind of combining it, but even that gives them a moment to breathe. And it's so important for our hearts, our minds, our soul. We can't just work in one area. We are body, we are mind, we are spirit, and we have to try to, I hate using the word balance, but equalize all of them together to create the whole being. Um, and I think when it comes to coaching and therapy, I want people to know that they don't need to be afraid of their past. Even when people have
Mm.
memories that they don't have memories. You're here today, which means you survived whatever possible traumatic event that was. And it's that tenacity that has moved you forward. And the memories are going to do nothing but bring healing and freedom, so that then you become the absolute best version of yourself.
Mm.
I was taught in psychology that our ultimate goal is self-actualization. And I went to a Christian college, but even then, it's for everyone, for whether you are a believer or have a different religion. We are trying to become the best version of who we are till the day we die.
Mm.
And the best way to do that is to be whole. And so it's super, super important for women and for men. I know men that are workaholics and they don't take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We have to take the time to take care of ourselves in whatever manner that looks like. And if it feels like it's selfish, then that's exactly what you probably should be doing.
Wow, what a tip for the day, because
Yes.
that's controversial. I'm sure that will get a few people's hair on the back of their neck standing up like, I can't do it, it just feels too selfish.
Right.
But I so appreciate this conversation today, Mie. This has been so fun. And for those of you that are listening, we'll have the contact information, but Mie, can you just share how they might get in touch with you?
So there's a couple different ways. On Facebook, I'm a public figure, so you can find me there.
Okay.
You can find my group, Finding Your Way Forward. I am also at treasurecoastpsychotherapy.com, all one word, treasurecoastpsychotherapy.com. And then my email, which you're welcome to email me, is connectwithmielynn@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you all so much for joining us today. And thank you, Mie, for starting us off with such a full conversation about the importance of wellness. And we will be hosting and interviewing future more professionals in this area. So we are really taking forward that idea that we've got to help women start to invest in themselves. I say women, VA obviously serves both men and women, but in my space, it's women to really invest in themselves and take care of themselves so that they can, as Mie said, be the best that they were created to be. We are severely in need of women that feel good about themselves in this world. And it's just a crime when we don't. There's such a bright, big, beautiful world out there. So anyway, thank you for joining us. Please come back, like, follow, subscribe, all those things you know to do. And we look forward to part 2 of Living in Wellness with you. Thanks, and have a great day.
It's been an honor.
You.